Hi everyone, thanks for making the left turn for today, Sunday, May 27th, 2018. I'm George Farrar. Welcome back to the Jax Life channel. Welcome back to another episode of History Jacksonville. I have a lot to bring you about Jacksonville's airports in the 20th century. You're right now looking at a picture of Jacksonville International Airport, otherwise known as JIA, in the 21st century. And I've flown out of JIA a couple times before and after the big renovation. So as we take one last look at JIA in the 21st century and we look at some of the comforts and amenities that we know of, it's time to say, let's roll it. It's time to go back to the early 20th century, and it's time to take a look at how aviation in Jacksonville really took off and how the Jacksonville Municipal Airport developed. It all started with a visit by Charles Lindbergh. He visited our new airport, which was under construction. In 1927, he was famous, having been the first man to do the solo Atlantic crossing from New York City to Paris. He was world famous. He dropped into Jacksonville in 1927 to wish us well, and people had the opportunity to check out the plane he flew, the Spirit of St. Louis, and here we see the Jacksonville Municipal Airport. So these were different times. Aviation was something new. The technologies, the ability to travel were really developing. And things were starting out in some ways in rather small ways. And there was a lot of civil aviation that was going on. And the first big aviation, passenger aviation services companies began to develop. Here we see Eastern. You know, we started to get on the map, literally on the map, when it came to connecting up with the rest of the country. Okay, Delta Airlines. Okay, if you take a look here, we see planes that were at the airfield. Now this is back when Jacksonville Airport began to be called Thomas Imeson Airport, named after a city commissioner. He was a city commissioner who was in charge of streets, highways, and airports. So he helped to make the airport to develop. And here we see some old buses, old-time buses. I view them, of course, as old-time buses, but back then, we're talking modern technology. These were planes back in the 1940s, Delta Airlines planes. We see the scope, the length of the runways, and we see where people would just come in off the road and pull in, and now there was a lot of change that was going on in the 1950s. Aviation was really beginning to develop. Passenger service was really beginning to build. So they started to make things more convenient for people to get in and out of the airport. Here you see a gas station right around this corner here. And then look, inside the control tower, here we see a National Airlines plane. National Airlines is no longer in existence. So these were different times. A 1955 shot of Imeson, a 1963 shot of Imeson. Okay, so it's getting real busy now. A lot of people were seeing the 1960s. This is a map of the Imeson Airport in the mid-1960s. So it became obvious that we needed to expand. The demands for air passenger service were growing, and so on September 1st, 1968, there was a dedication of what we know of as JIA, Jacksonville International Airport. Now, of course, there were substantial renovations later, but what you're seeing is what opened available to people in 1968 going into the early 1970s. And look what a different way of visiting the airport it was. Look at how simple the approaches were. Parking very much a different thing back then. Here we see the terminal now. Of course, there were a lot of modifications later on. We see the runways of Jacksonville International Airport in 1968. We see the airport in operation. You see what a vast difference this is from Imeson. We see the interior. We see baggage claim back years ago. And in the late 1970s, this is the roadway. Of course, you have that choice. Are you picking someone up or are you leaving? And now let's take a look from the great photographer Lloyd Sandgren, a look at Imeson back when it was in operation, and now we see what the area looks like in the 21st century. Still plenty of room for development. We see warehouses. So we can see that down the road, there still is a lot more that can happen in this area of the north side off Main Street. So I want to thank you for joining me today. I hope you're enjoying what I'm bringing you here on History Jacksonville. The best is yet to come. This is a viewer request, by the way. I've got 2 more episodes ahead. Hope you enjoyed it. Take it easy. See you later.